just a side note, it's very clear it's a dummy. If anyone jumped down and fell the way that dummy fell, they would be dead.
No doubt. Hi, I'm Matt with No Market Media.
And I'm Randall. Today, Matt and I are looking at what the internet apparently thinks is a St. Patrick's Day film. Seriously. Look up St. Patrick's Day film. It'll be there. This is 1993's The Fugitive. It stars Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, Sella Ward, Joe Pantoliano, Andreas Katsulas, and Jerome Crabb. It is directed by Andrew Davis, who's also well known for directing Under Siege, Holes, and The Guardian. But before we get too far into it, make sure if you like this video, you give it a like. The algorithm really likes those likes.
Yep.
If you want to see more, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you always want to be bothered when we're uploading, make sure to hit the bell icon.
Now, The Fugitive is about a doctor wrongly convicted of murdering his wife, who is on the run following a crash involving a prison bus. Now he's looking to piece together who killed his wife and why, all while being hunted by U.S. Marshals. It had a $44 million budget and earned $369 million, which today would be nearly twice that, with earnings at $724 million, which is what, Randall?
Marvel money! Definitely.
It's near universally praised by critics and is also very well liked by audiences. Now, it's based on the TV series of the same name and led to a spin-off movie, U.S. Marshals. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, and Tommy Lee Jones won one for Best Supporting Actor.
So, by and large, I still found it a decently enjoyable film to watch, but I did find a lot of the policing stuff had not aged well at all. I mean, times change, norms change, what's socially acceptable changes, and there are portions in here where the police are treated just universally terrible, and we'd like to think better than that. Like, it's hard to watch. We don't like to put that on screen, but at the same time, it still treats the main characters, our U.S. Marshals, as like God tier. And like, I don't want to see that on screen either. So it's still enjoyable as a movie. I want to be clear in that. But there are parts of like how these individual character types are displayed that I found really off-putting watching it from a modern perspective.
Yep. Yeah, I still enjoyed this movie too. But I honestly, like, when this came out in the 90s, this was like one of kind of like my go-to, I would say, movies or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I kind of get the same hint. It doesn't quite live up to that, like, now. I don't know that this would necessarily be one of those go-to, but, I think it's still an enjoyable film, and parts of this movie definitely have that 90s feel to it or whatever, and I guess I'll get into a little bit more what that is, but yeah.
Especially in the way the film is edited. I would say it's almost even sloppy. Kind of surprising to find out that it was, 7. Nominated for 7 Academy Awards. I'm like, wow, this movie?
Yeah.
Not today.
People really like this movie, and, a lot of people think about this as one of, like, best action or whatever movies of, like, the 90s, or one of.
We're gonna get into that.
Kind of interesting.
We're going to get into that genre section.
Okay, for, like, the plot, I kind of see, like, two sides in this movie. So, one, we got, like, Tommy Lee Jones and the other U.S. Marshal stuff and how they're trying to piece together different things to hunt down this fugitive. And then the other side of the movie we have our, fugitive played by Harrison Ford, who, is trying to find ways to, like, prove his innocence and stuff. This isn't like a fugitive that's just, like, trying to hide out just to hide out or try to get off to some place. He's more into trying to piece stuff together and just not be detected or whatever as he's trying to piece this information together.
And they're trying to piece different pieces together. The U.S. Marshals are trying to find him. He's trying to prove his innocence.
Yep.
For me, the plot is what actually carries me through the film. Because there's some stuff that we'll get to in the character section where I'm just like, they're kind of okay in their own like ways, but it's the conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
the unfolding of what happened and why it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why was it his wife that was killed? Why did such and such person do this, only to find out, oh no, it was at the behest of this person, was that the behest of this, you know, want for money and like, you know, getting this drug approved and everything. That's what actually carried me through, was that plot.
Yep.
Which is weird, because the movie's called The Fugitive, and you're like, I should be really holding on to like the chase, and the chase is fun to watch, but the conspiracy theory unfolding was way more fun to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think really, and granted, it's one of the most famous scenes, I would say, from this movie or whatever, where you see those two sides come to head, is the one where Harrison Ford's got the gun or whatever on Tommy Lee Jones and stuff.
I didn't kill my wife.
I don't care. You know, I mean, it just shows how they're coming at the two different things. Like, Harrison Ford that's what he's trying to prove. He didn't kill his wife. Where Tommy Lee Jones is like, no, that's not my job to try to do. Yeah. I'm hunting a fugitive, and you're a fugitive.
Yeah, exactly. That scene leads to one of the other more famous scenes, but that's completely that's for, you know, that's for a different part. I'll come back to that too. There's gonna be lots of coming back to that. Alright, so like I had already kind of alluded to, the characters are good. You know, like this idea of Dr. Kimball and, you know, going through the trial, everything's been so perfectly well set up. This conspiracy to get him arrested and him put in jail has been so well done, basically. And then you have the U.S. Marshals, which I guess the team, they're there.
Yep.
But they're not that interesting, you know? I guess the one you might point to, maybe Cosmo, he does a lot, which Joe Pantoliano is a character and everything. But they're just kind of there to do whatever Tommy Lee Jones tells them to do. And that's the weird thing. Like, even though he won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this, or Academy Award, I didn't find his character particularly great. By the end, he's like, all right, I'm still a good person.
Right.
And he proves that by the end. It's like, okay, I've been able to piece together what happened, even though it's not my job to do that. Like, why is he doing this and where is he going? And he proves himself good. I found his character more enjoyable near the end than at all during the fugitive chasing scenes.
Yeah. Me, actually, I would say I'm on the opposite. I think watching this in like the 90s, part of my big draw to it, why I keep like watching it, I mean, it's got Harrison Ford. You know, you got Han Solo, Indiana Jones, you know, in this fugitive movie. So I really like that. And this movie, I guess, he is like the focus. He's the main character, is, you know, Kimball, Dr. Kimball and stuff, and trying to prove that stuff. I actually do like Tommy Lee Jones more watching it now. To me, I actually think it's a little bit more standout stuff. I will agree with you though, like the other like U.S. Marshals are they're kind of background a little bit. They are just there for Tommy Lee Jones to tell them, you know, what to do and stuff.
I'm so smart.
Yep. But I think a lot of it is used to tell like the Tommy Lee Jones character, like the one time where they're getting the other guy that escaped, which, you know, I'll kind of get into that a little bit more later on. This is the theme Randall and I have on with this review.
Sorry, that's just the way this one's gonna go down. Push it down the road.
Yep. But specifically talk about that scene where he actually like shoots through his own gyro or behind to kill the bad guy and stuff, and then has that thing where it's like, you know, like,
I don't bargain.
So it's like using that to kind of explain more of Tommy Lee Jones's character and like his mindset in this movie.
Yeah, and then of course you have the conspirators, the bad guys. Andreas is an interesting choice because he's actually an able-bodied person playing a disabled person. Thanks a lot for that one, Hollywood.
No, it wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
Plenty of, you know, actors out there that are disabled who could have done that role. Yep. But I don't want to take away from, like, Andreas's depiction. It's an interesting thing. Like, you know, basically a cop who put his time in, did his due diligence, and is now working as a security consultant for the big firm. And then you have the doctor who's planned everything out so that way he can have a big payday. So their characters are really good because it drags you along. You just think, well, it's this guy. It's Andreas's character. And then near the very end, when the rest of everything comes to light, basically, if it's his close friend, it makes it worse.
Yep.
It's like everything at this point seems kind of random, or maybe the pharmaceutical company hired him to do this hit, and then it's like, oh no, it's not. It's very personal. It's actually a close friend of his that did it. So that's an interesting bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know who the actual villain is.
Yep.
For the biggest part of the film.
Yep. I think it's interesting too when we're learning about these characters. We are learning from like those two different sides. Like we have like Kimball looking into these quote unquote villain characters or what he sees of them. He doesn't know that his buddy until like the end.
Real close to the end.
But it's also interesting to see like from the U.S. Marshals thing when they're like, well, why is Kimball like, is he friends with these guys? Why would he talk to these people? Different things too. And then their first instinct, especially with the former police officers, like, oh, this guy's dirty. Like we need to watch him because there's some shady stuff going on with this guy. All right, so for genre aspects, I would say action thriller. The action stuff we get from, I guess, like the bus explosion, and then we have a couple, like, I don't know if you want to say standoff scenes or whatever. But I guess that was also kind of turned into the thriller part. To me, the thriller is kind of like the chase, like, oh, we're getting close to catching him, and then somehow he escapes, and we start it all over again. But I guess it comes to the head at the end where, Tommy Lee Jones is going after Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford is duking it out with his buddy, his bad guy thing, and
Yes.
It comes that. So I think that has a little bit of both, like, the action and, like, the thriller part to it.
So it's definitely supposed to be an action thriller. It's billed as an action thriller, but it's a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a ton of action in this as you would think of action films. Like, maybe in Indiana Jones, to use another Harrison Ford film, is like an action adventure movie.
Yep.
There is action. There's gunfights and punching and fist fights and everything.
Yep.
In this, the bulk of it is spent not having action scenes, and the bulk of it is not on thriller scenes either. It's all about unraveling these mysteries, unraveling the conspiracy.
Yep.
So I think it's a little mislabeled as an action thriller, but that's what, if you ask them, well, what is The Fugitive? They're gonna tell you it's an action thriller movie.
Yep.
I just disagree with that. But it's easier to sell that. Put that in the trailers.
It's true. I mean, that's an easier genre or whatever to put in. I guess some of the things, like trying to figure out, like, well, is Harrison Ford going to be found out or whatever? Ooh. Well, not necessarily from, like, the U.S. Marshals, but basically when he's doing, like you're saying, the mystery stuff, the investigating stuff, like when he's going through the hospital and stuff, like, oh, are they going to point out?
Yeah. But that's more like on the suspense side than thriller side.
Yep.
So, yeah, and then Julianne Moore happens to be in this film too. She gets really high, like, billing for someone who's in the movie for 5 minutes.
I mean, they really could have had anyone in that scene and it would have, gone off. So, yeah.
All right, so I said I was going to come back to this. This is something I didn't see coming. We alluded to it earlier. The jump scene, which has become iconic. Not just iconic, but parodied. And it is the scene for the movie. Yep. It's like, if you think of The Fugitive, you're thinking Tommy Lee Jones with Harrison Ford at the edge. He's either going to come in or he's going to jump, down the face of this dam. It happens really early. Like, this is the scene that is defining for this movie. You think of the Fugitive, and this is the scene you think of. And it's within, like, the first 25, 30 minutes of the movie. Which I was surprised about. I kind of forgot about how early that happens. And just a side note, it's very clear it's a dummy. If anyone jumped down and fell the way that dummy fell, they would be dead.
No doubt.
But, just in general, like, the defining scene for this entire movie is very early on.
Yep. Me, what I didn't really see coming, I guess, Harrison Ford's Kimball isn't the only inmate that survives the train/bus crash. And yet, we really focus on him in the search at that time or whatever. Instead of there being, like, two, we get Tommy Lee Jones' character coming out with, printout of, Harrison Ford's character. Like, this is our fugitive. This is who we're going with. So it's kind of like me watching, I'm like, did they just forget about that?
Nope.
And then all of a sudden we just have a scene put in with the other guy that has the shootout. But as I was saying earlier in the review, that scene is really there just to help us better explain Tommy Lee Jones's character.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it is weird that it's not, hey, we got two fugitives, this is one and this is two. It's like right away they're just like, it's this guy. That is weird. You're right.
But I guess it makes sense for a movie because it's like, Harrison Ford's character, that's the character we're explaining, and that's our main character. So we want the audience to focus on that. But me kind of watching again, it's like, you know
what? Maybe here's the thing. He's a convicted murderer, and the other guy's maybe, convicted on a much lesser crime.
That very well could be.
So it's like, this guy's a murderer, a convicted murderer. He's our fugitive. He's our, main point of interest, basically, over this other guy who knows why he's there. They don't tell you. So
that very well could be.
But it doesn't mean that they could have explained that in, a one-off line. Like, listen, this guy's a murderer, and this guy, held up a convenience store. So we're going after the murderer.
Yep.
One line of dialogue could have explained
it. Generally, I do like this film. It's still enjoyable and stuff, even if I don't quite hold it in as high regard now as I did before. There is things that are interesting in it. I do like, Harrison Ford's Kimball in this. I do like Tommy Lee Jones. To me, I think Tommy Lee Jones is actually the standout for me. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed in kind of like that supporting characters, like we were saying, two of the other U.S. Marshals. And that is where I get the 90s feel of it. Like this group or whatever. I almost think of almost kind of like Twister and stuff. I think part of the reason Twister works so good is because our supporting group is so likable and enjoyable and stuff too. Where in The Fugitive, I don't know that the U.S. Marshals, like the other ones, are as strong in this movie.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is it hasn't aged particularly well. The way this film is edited, the way that there's cuts and pans out where you can see oh my god, it's totally a double, that's a stunt double, or that's totally a body double. Some of that stuff hasn't aged well. Some of the police stuff definitely hasn't aged well, especially the way the U.S. Marshals treat local law enforcement. They're just idiots. A theme you'll see coming back later. I promise. Say maybe about Thursday. But that stuff hasn't aged well. But the two main characters in the storylines, I'm still here for. But I won't tell someone to go watch this. You have to watch this preeminent 90s film.
Yep.
I'm like, no, you know what? If you're interested in kind of a murder mystery, maybe edging on thriller, go watch it and make up your own mind. So maybe you're not as nostalgic as I am, Well,
I think kind of too, because this was a movie that, for at the time, that was really good earnings and stuff. And it's like, oh man, well, we need to catch this lightning in the bottle again. We've had some, I guess, kind of similar movies or taken the same thing and improved on it better. That maybe those are the movies that I would more recommend today. Whereas me, I go The Fugitive because I liked it, in the 90s, where it doesn't quite hold up to that standard now as it did then.
Absolutely not. But if you're a 90s fanboy of The Fugitive, let us know what we are obviously wrong about or right about. Did you like the film? Let us know in the comments below. Also, make sure to go check out our YouTube page. We have other flashback movie reviews, new movie reviews, some TV series reviews, and of course, some deeper dive discussions.
Also, be sure to check us out on Facebook. We post some different things for our fandoms. We also post a day before our videos come out to let you know the topic of that video. But if you don't have Facebook, don't worry about it. Just go to our YouTube page. Our reviews of videos come out on a schedule every Monday and Thursday. For now, with No Market Media, I'm Matt. Have a good day, everyone.
And I'm Randall. I'll see everyone next time.
Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.